Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular council meeting for November 28th. I'd like to remind members of the public in the gallery during a council meeting to adhere to the conduct set forth in the public procedural bylaw and displayed near the entrance of council chambers. I'll call the regular council meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Starting with the land acknowledgement, Blackfalds Town Council acknowledges that we are on Treaty 6 territory, a traditional meeting ground, gathering place, and traveling route to the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, and Nakota Sioux. We acknowledge all the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. And just for everyone's information, Councillor Stende has sent her regrets for this evening. Adoption of agendas. Has council had a chance to review the agendas? And are there any additions or deletions to the, I see administration.
Yes, we would like to add December 18th standing committee meeting, 6-6 and 6-7 Tails Park lighting schedule.
Six, 7 is the Tails Christmas lights. Thank you. Council, anything noted? Councillor Pell.
Thank you. I'm prepared to approve the amended agenda.
Thank you. Any debate, discussion? All in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Does any member of council wish to exempt any item from the proposed consent agenda? Nope, seeing none. Councillor Schwab.
I'll move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. Debate or discussion? All in favor? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. All right. We have no delegations this evening. I have no public hearings. Moving on to business item 6.1, request for decision on bylaw 1290.23, the land use bylaw use amendments.
Good evening, Mayor Hoover, members of council. The land use bylaw amendments before you pertain specifically to uses. Establishing proper uses in land use districts is paramount because uses cannot be varied by the development authority nor the appeal bodies. If a use is contemplated in a land use bylaw but not reflected in a specific district, it is seen as a deliberate exclusion from that district and will therefore not be allowed without going through a land use bylaw amendment. The amendments proposed under bylaw 1290.23 are coming forward to assist with the implementation of the municipal facility office space policy pertaining to the former FCSS building and in anticipation of additional complementary uses at the Eagle Builder Center. As use amendments were required, the department took the opportunity to address misuse in the industrial districts, being the recreation vehicle storage, and include a definition for similar use. The amendment numbers identified in the discussion component of this report correspond with the amendment numbers in the bylaw. So I'll just start with amendment number 2.1. This amendment is to bring in a similar use definition. Due to the prescriptive nature of uses in land use bylaws, many municipalities, including the town of Blackfalds, include similar use provisions in some districts. We have similar uses listed as discretionary uses in all of our industrial and commercial districts. And what this allows for is some flexibility when the development authority is contemplating a permit application for a use that may not have been considered when the land use bylaw was written, but it's similar enough to the other uses listed that it would be an acceptable use. the development authority needs to be careful in using the similar use provision. So we're adding in a definition to ensure that it is clear when it's an appropriate time to use that provision. Amendments 2.2 and 2.3, they pertain to adding recreational vehicle storage into our industrial light and industrial heavy districts. We recognized when we had an inquiry for a new RV storage lot that although we had a definition in the land use bylaw, that wasn't carried over in the district. So that was simply a miss when we brought in our land use bylaw our new one in 2022. So we're proposing to bring that back because they've been historically been allowed in those districts. Amendment 2.4 pertains to bringing health services as a permitted use in the public facility district, but only at the former FCSS building. And this is, again, to assist with the implementation of the municipal facility office space policy, which is included in attachment 2 of your report. And we're also proposing to add that into the Eagle Builder Center to allow for potential physiotherapy or other related uses. Amendment 2.5 pertains to bringing restaurant as a discretionary use, but only at the Eagle Builder Center. And this is in anticipation of a potential restaurant. There has not been any application brought forward. This is just seen as a potential use that may want to go into the Eagle Builder Center. As for pre-council consultation, in the spirit and intent of the public participation policy, all industrial landowners were provided with a notice of administration's intent to bring forward the amendments to include recreation vehicle storage as a discretionary use in the industrial districts. We received 2 inquiries and they were just matters of clarification. The amending bylaw before council this evening was presented at the November 20th Standing Committee of Council meeting, where the following recommendations were carried. The first was that Councillor Coulter moved that Standing Committee of Council recommend council give first reading to bylaw 129023. And the second motion was Councillor Appel moved that Standing Committee of Council recommend upon giving first reading to bylaw 129023 that a public hearing date be set for January 9th, 2024 at 7 p.m. in council chambers. The administrative recommendation before you is that council give first reading to bylaw 129023 land use bylaw use amendments. And secondly, that council upon giving first reading to bylaw 129023 set a public hearing date for January 9th, 2024 at 7 p.m. in council chambers. Thank you.
Thank you. Council have any questions? Councillor Sands.
Thank you. So yeah, I was opposed to this originally. Now, while understanding the need for these amendments in the land use bylaw, it made it hard because bundling all these amendments into one would make me have to vote in favor of them if there was one that I was not in favor of at that time. So that's the reason I was opposed to it. I would like to have, now I know it makes for a longer process, but potentially separating those amendments so that we can address them separately for that reason. That was my thought process during it. Now, moving this forward, of course, I will vote in favor of this. And I will also, I hope that we do hear from the public regarding these amendments as well, because I think it's important that they be heard as well. So yeah, it was a hard thing because I know, most of these amendments are very, very important for us here in Blackfalds. So I just do have one question, and that is regarding Amendment 2.5 with the restaurant as a discretionary use in the public facility district. Given that it's looking at the Eagle Builder Center, I'm just wondering, I was just trying to place it when I was at the hockey game. Where exactly would something like that be located if you were to look into that? If you were to have somebody approach you for that, if that has been thought about?
Through the mayor, I'll answer the first component of that. And CAO Nick Isaac, please correct me if I'm wrong. If council is not comfortable with one of the amendments that's before you, you can make a motion to amend it and sever that from the bylaw. Because we've presented it as a package, it doesn't take away that ability of council to say this amendment just doesn't make sense. Now, as for the other question, the restaurant use, that was with discussions with community services, just as a potential use that may be going into the Eagle Builder Center. And I don't know if Director Krekowicz wants to speak to that.
Yeah, so not an actual potential use, like nobody is knocking on our door saying that we want to put a restaurant in the Eagle Builder Center, but just down the road, potentially, if that were to be an option, if there were a lease space available per se, then someone could do that as an option. This would just eliminate having to go through first, second, third reading before they could do so.
Just one subsequent. So you are confirming nobody has actually reached out to us looking to do something like that?
Yes, that's correct. Nobody's reached out to us.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor Dennis.
I have to agree with Jim, grouping them all together and having a restaurant in Eagle Builders Center. We have a lot of lease places and stuff that we do have. I don't think we should be competing against our other commercial property too. I would like to see that 2.5 taken off that there.
So I know when I first look at this, whenever land use bylaw comes, it's a pretty broad, large document. I'm sorry, CEO, if you were going to respond. And I kind of had hesitations when I see that. But I think the more I think about this, in the fact that this will go to a public hearing, and as well, most of these, if not all of these, are discretionary additions to the zones, so that they're not something that automatically would come. I like that when we're opening up a doc or a bylaw like the land use bylaw, that we consider a number of things, because it is something that requires a public hearing and gives anybody that has a concern the chance to look at it in one session. It's a little bit of extra effort for planning and development to receive comments in this, and as was mentioned by planning and development, that we could potentially sever something from it if we felt that it wasn't appropriate once we got public comment. But I can't say I completely disagree that it's a bit daunting to look at broad changes all in one lump. I think it's comforting for me to know that even if we were to approve these changes as they were, this is still a discretionary use. Any of these applications, if they were to ever come, would come to MPC if they were outside of the scope of planning and development.
Just a point of clarification, the restaurant is proposed to be discretionary use. The health services are proposed to be permitted.
Permitted use. Okay. Well, but I guess thank you for that correction. In my mind, I think I commented when this came up at standing committee that I know that that's probably the main urgency for these bylaw amendments. These other changes are things that were probably noted some time ago that needed to be addressed. And while we had this open, while we were going to do a public hearing, but then it was worthwhile looking at as a whole. CEO Isaac, I see your lights.
Thank you. The procedure bylaw doesn't allow for any amendment to a bylaw at first reading, but you can do that at second reading, between second and third reading. So the bylaw should be voted on as it currently sits tonight if you want to give it first reading, but you could remove or amend or sections at second reading.
Thank you.
Councillor Schwab.
So my question would be, if at second reading we take amendment 2.5 out, what would the red tape be for somebody that is applying for a restaurant at the Eagle Builder Center? How many months would it actually take for them to be able to be successful at maybe getting that spot?
Sure. Through Mayor Hoover, it'd be a minimum of 4 months. And the application fee of $1,500.
And is that just, if that is, just to be clear, that is if that is taken out, so that would be then going back in, looking at the land use bylaw again to make an amendment?
Yeah, that's correct. That would be if council decided to sever restaurant from that and we had a restaurant application come forward next year, the individual, we couldn't allow that because restaurant isn't an allowable use. So they would have to apply to amend the land use bylaw, is a $1,500 non-refundable fee. And then we do our internal referrals, external referrals, which brings some lag time, and then the council process, which can be 2 to 3 months. So 4 months in totality, typically more 6.
Right. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. So if everyone's clear that, Councillor Slav again.
No questions. I was just ready to move. If
Sure.
nobody else is.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. I move that council give first reading to bylaw 1290.23, the land use bylaw use amendments.
Thank you. Debate or discussion on that motion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? All opposed? It is carried unanimously. Late hand. You're not opposed. Thank you. And we do have a second administrative recommendation for the public hearing. Councillor Sands, you won the race. It's my birthday. It is. Yeah. It isn't the best birthday gift ever to be able to move a motion.
I'm prepared to move the council upon giving first reading to bylaw 129.23, a public hearing date be set for January 9th, 2024 at 7 p.m. in council chambers.
Thank you. Debate or discussion? All in favor? It's also carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6.2, request for decision on bylaw 1294.23, Schedule A, corporate services fee schedule.
Yes, good evening, Your Worship and Council. The new corporate services fee schedule has been created to be more in alignment with the services that we currently provide and appropriate at a more appropriate fee for those services. And corporate services fee schedule was reviewed by council at the November 20th standing committee and is attached as an appendix. The proposed rates and fees will provide revenue to help offset expenses of operations. They are effective immediately and are included in our 2024-2026 operating budget. So before we're asking for first reading, second reading, and if unanimous consent, going to the third reading to approve the bylaw.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, I will open up for motions. Councillor Coulter.
I won this time. Nice. I move that council give first reading to bylaw 1294.23, Schedule A, corporate service fee schedule.
Thank you. Debate or discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you. Looking for second reading. Councillor Schwab.
I'll move that council give second reading to bylaw 1294.23, Schedule A, corporate service fee schedule.
Thank you. Debate or discussion? All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Looking for third or unanimous consent to move to a third reading. Councillor Sands.
I'll move that council give unanimous consent to give third reading to bylaw 1294.23, Schedule A, corporate services fee schedule.
Thank you. Debate or discussion? All in favor? And we do have a unanimous consent to move to third reading. Councillor Appel.
Thank you. I move council give third and final reading to bylaw 1294.23, Schedule A, corporate services fee schedule.
Thank you. Call the question, all in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you. Moving to 6.3, request for decision on council policy CP 173.23, the travel and subsistence policy.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. Before you do have the Travel and Subsistence Council policy for your review. At the November 20th Standing Committee, Council gave the direction to bring this policy forward for formal approval. The policy is made up of the per diem rates that will be payable to Council upon request, and the policy has set the limit at 65% of the CRA rates. The annual budget establishes the Council and Travel and Sub for each year. The current budget is in the amount of $5,200 for Council members and $9,850 for the Mayor. Year to date, 6 meals have been claimed by Council members. The administration recommendation is that Council adopt the Council policy CP 173.23, which is the travel and subsistence as presented.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Pell.
Thank you. Through the chair to Director DeBresser. So thank you for this. I know that at Standing Committee, one of the questions was we were asked how many meals had been claimed. So I just wanted to say thank you for including that information on this report. Thanks.
And the other question that came up, and I think I understood the answer, but just want to make sure that everyone's crystal clear on it, that when it comes to the meals, this is, it's a relatively small amount, but this is when it's unreceipted amounts. So anytime that someone's doing training or travel where they incur a meal expense that's higher than that, with a receipt, it would be covered as long as it's approved by the approving authority. But this would be for someone that's traveling. Yep. They just claim a lunch or breakfast or a meal at that flat rate, and that wouldn't require the receipt. So that's how I understood it, and you're confirming that. Thank you. So that said, I mean, I appreciate. I think this does simplify it. That this thing doesn't require an amendment every single time that that the province or CRA makes a change. That it's just the attachment that will work and change every time that does. As we know, with the way inflation's worked and have been in the last couple of years, that can change dramatically. So if there are no other questions, anyone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Sands.
I'll move that council adopt council policy CP 173.23, travel and subsistence as presented.
Thank you. Debate or discussion on that motion? All in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you. And then moving to 6.4, the 2024 capital budget and 5-year capital plan.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council again. I'm here to present the 2024 capital budget and the 5-year capital plan. The 2024 capital budget has been prepared and reviewed for approval tonight. Over the past few months, the town has developed the 2024 capital budget and hosted a budget workshop on October 27th and 28th for in-depth discussions with council administration. Further discussions and directions were given at the additional budget workshop on the 16th of November 2023. Appendix A identifies the projects needed and the funding sources. Appendix B lists the project information and justifications of such projects. Some of the changes that we have included from the discussions is the high school football field. Administration recommends approaching the football field at the new high school in 2 phases. First, the initial budget of $500,000 will enable the town to start design, and through that design process, administration can bring updated costs back both on irrigation and illumination back for council's discussion. Pending those discussions, we can bring back a budget request if needed. The arena parking lot expansion. A capital project was added to the 2024 capital budget for planning and engineer work required to develop costing options and traffic impacts for future arena parking lot expansions in the amount of $30,000. These amounts will allow high-level plans to be explored through our engineering consultants, Stantec, to bring back the council for deficient parking approval from the MPC prior to council's decision to keeping the FCSS and community hub buildings. Once again, based on these findings, if a budget amendment is required, we'll bring that back to council. Through our discussions on the Duncan and Leung Road Phase 2 project, administration has included a trail system for the amount of $130,000. And in addition, for the enforcement in-car camera system has been included. The current systems are at end of life with parts becoming very hard to source. So we have included a budget amount of $70,000 in 2024. The 5-year capital plan is attached. Each year, legislation requires a municipality to develop long-term capital plans. The 5-year capital plan, as presented, highlights projects that will assist the community, that will assist the current community needs and the sustainability of town infrastructure. The plan may change year to year depending on the community needs and available funding sources. The Appendix C highlights the 5-year capital plan for the town of Blackfalds. The 2024 capital budget is $5,390,500 coming from a variety of funding sources, utilizing grants and then general capital as the main funding sources. The administration recommendation tonight is that council move to accept the recommendation of administration to approve the 2024 capital budget as presented. And the second motion there is the council accepts the 5-year capital plan as information. And with that, I'll open up for any questions, and we have got the directors here to answer any questions that you may have.
Councillor Schwab.
So regarding the high school football field, if we do this in a 2-phase process, would the lights and the irrigation get installed after the football field is built, or would it come forth before it's built?
It will, yeah. So sorry, the 2-phase approach may be let's get started on the actual design, and through that design process, we'll have the options before the field gets built.
Okay, and then how would that affect? Like, where would the money come if we need to put it in the football field in 2024?
Yeah, so we'll go through our capital reserves and find a funding source for it, and we'll present that idea back to council.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
No trouble.
And I appreciate that, your comments on the parking lot. I know that there was a lot of discussion on that. And, we have a number of residents, visitors that question why we haven't moved forward on additional parking. So during this agenda planning, I did ask the CAO Isaac about whether or not we should consider, allocating some funds for this. And I think there was a good argument or a good response that we can, once we've got more information back in terms of what our options are, we can contemplate that. I know that that's not going to impact any budget increase. It's completely different. I know capital, but I do think that it's really important that we keep that top of mind. That is a high priority for our community, and just so we're preparing ourselves, that there's a very good likelihood, in my opinion anyways, a very good likelihood that we will be and should be making an amendment in 2024 to get some activity in the next year, ideally in the next construction season, to try and take some pressure off on that. The other item that I'm a little bit challenged with, I am going to vote in favor of it, is the in-car camera. The challenge I have is just because I feel that, I want to ensure that we are taking advantage of all opportunities in terms of procurement to coordinate that with other agencies, with RCMP. I know that with the body-worn cameras, and I don't have a lot of detail in terms of who it was that was likely coordinating that purchase, but I do know that at different conferences, it's been brought up that with a lot of agencies, RCMP in particular being the biggest agency making that purchase, that they would likely lead that, and everyone else, every other agency in the province could take advantage of those the prices that come along with that. I would hope that the town has that opportunity and will take advantage of that opportunity. And I hope that this 70,000 that we're allocating here is effectively the maximum amount. And hopefully we can realize a little bit of savings through that procurement. So, again, I had questions and concerns that this was a fairly high amount, and we didn't have much discussion and didn't have much information as to how we might coordinate that. But I'm voting in favor, trusting that we are going to take advantage of every procurement opportunity to try and save money, along with a mass purchase with other agencies, hopefully. That would be my only concern in moving forward on this. So with that, does anybody else have questions on the capital budget? Looking for a motion. Councillor Schwab.
I just want to thank you, Director DeBresser, because you did bring a lot of our concerns back in this, and I think it was very well worded, and I appreciate it. With that being said, I move that council move to accept the recommendation of administration to approve the 2024 capital budget as presented.
Thank you. Debate or discussion on that motion? I call the question. All in favor? And that is unanimous. I'm looking for a second motion. Councillor Coulter.
I move that council accept the 5-year capital plan for information.
Thank you. Debate or discussion? All in favor? And that is also carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to 6.5, the 2025 operating budget and the 3-year operating forecast.
Excellent. Thank you, Your Worship, again, and Council. So before you, you do have the 2024 operating budget and the 3-year operating forecast. The 2024 operating budget has been prepared and reviewed through a collaborative process. This process commenced earlier in the year with the approval of the budget timeline, public engagement, and various discussions with administration and council. The budget process continued with a meeting with council on August 8th to establish the general direction, set priorities, and focus areas for council. This sets the foundation of what is required to be implemented into the 3-year operating budget. Administration reviews the program services and new initiatives required to balance the cost to provide the services at a level that citizens of Blackfalds expect. Section 242 of the MGA requires a municipality to adopt the operating budget each calendar year. At this meeting, administration is seeking approval of the 2024 operating budget as presented after implementing the changes identified during the budget workshops and the budget draft review.